Hi, this is Kate from Generate Magic, and today I really want to explore this idea that what's standing between us and having the life that we desire is our own stories about why we can't have it. And I know you probably heard this before, and I know it sounds really obvious on the surface, but it can be difficult to grasp. I know for me, it's been very challenging, but I actually had this big revelation the other night when I was watching a rerun of 2.5 Men. And so in the episode, Alan, the main character, Alan, he has this story that love just never works out for him. And meanwhile, his brother, Charlie, who's played by Charlie Sheen, just always seems to get all the women. And he just always seems to have success with women. And on top of that, Alan has this story that his brother is always stealing women from him. That anytime he finds a woman that he's interested in, that his brother ends up taking them away from him. And when he and his brother start having a conversation about this, it turns out that all of these stories are from childhood. and so it kind of reveals, how ridiculous this whole belief is. And so currently in his life, Alan is dating this beautiful woman who is in love with him, and she actually gives Alan the keys to her house. And so in other words, it's the keys to her heart, right? The keys in the same way that God, and remember when I say God, I'm not referring to the man in the sky, I'm referring to the God within us. So God is giving us the keys to our inner kingdom, to all that we desire, right? But a lot of times we push it away because we just believe that it's not possible for us. And like Alan, we have all these stories from our childhood about why it can't work out for us. And so Alan is just convinced that his current girlfriend, that she really wants to be with his brother Charlie. And on top of it, he's convinced that Charlie is trying to steal his girlfriend away from him. And so he really takes this to the extreme, and he brings it up to his girlfriend. He says, "You're just trying to get with Charlie, aren't you?" And she's like, "No, that's ridiculous." And they actually end up having a huge fight, and so he ends up not going to her housewarming party. And so you can see in this illustration, right, how he's actually sabotaging his success. How here she was giving him the keys to her house, giving him the keys to her heart. Just like God is giving you the keys to your inner kingdom. And here he was pushing it away, telling her that, "No, I don't believe you. You don't really love me. You love my brother." and so because of this fight, he ends up not attending the party, but he decides that he actually sneaks over to the party and he watches through the window because he still believes that Charlie is trying to get with her. So Charlie ends up going to the party. And so while he's watching through the window, he actually ends up getting sprayed by a skunk. And so again, when we're kind of coming, just like in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, right? So all these characters were just so jealous of Ferris, and they couldn't believe that they could have that level of success for themselves. And so they try to sabotage his success, and so in their limited thinking, they actually just make things worse for themselves. And so Charlie is doing the same thing, right? Alan is doing the same thing. He's just making things way worse for himself. And so he gets sprayed by the skunk, and he only sees what he sees through the window, right? Which is a very limited perspective, just like we're only seeing things through, most of the time, through a very limited perspective. Whenever we're in that state of lack or that state of doubt or fear, fear that it won't work out. And so what he's seeing through this window is he's seeing Charlie talking to his girlfriend, and so he thinks they're just really hitting it off and that they're just having this wonderful relationship, or not wonderful relationship, but that he's making a move on her, and pretty soon they're going to be hooking up, and Charlie is going to be her new boyfriend. But what's actually taking place is that Charlie is asking her about two other women at the party, and after Alan gets sprayed by the skunk and he ends up leaving, he doesn't see the whole story play out. And so he doesn't see that Charlie actually leaves the party with two other women. So he's not actually interested in Alan's girlfriend at all. And so it's the same thing with us, right? And with our very limited vision, we're not seeing the whole picture, the whole scope of how things are actually playing out in the grand scheme of things. And so then Alan, he ends up trying to use another neighbor's hose to try and spray himself off because he's been sprayed, to clean himself off because he's been sprayed by the skunk. And then his neighbor sees what's happening, and so his neighbor tries to help him out, and his neighbor says, oh, well, maybe tomato juice will help get the smell out. Here, I have some V8 juice. And so he douses him with V8 juice. And he just keeps making the problem worse and worse. In the same way that we get caught up in the messy middle, right? We get caught up in our stories and these limited beliefs and all this feeling of lack. And we just keep making things worse and worse for ourselves. And let me tell you, I was in this place just a few months ago where something was not going the way that I wanted in my reality and my 3D limited reality from this very limited perspective that I had, and I was allowing myself to spiral. And then more and more things, I just kept getting more and more tangled up in this mess. And then my phone ended up getting stolen. And then the person that stole my phone ended up actually hacking my account and stealing more money from me. And so it very much was like Alan in that scene, right? Where he just kind of keeps making it worse and worse. And dousing himself with the hose, and then dousing himself with the V8 juice, and then it doesn't stop. After that, his brother, being even though on the surface his brother Charlie seems like this kind of selfish player type dude, but Charlie, deep down, he really has a good heart, and he really cares about his brother. And so he actually talks to the girlfriend and to Lindsay, and he says, look, Lindsay, my brother, he's a really good person and he has a really good heart. Can you please just give him a second chance? And meanwhile, Alan is watching this whole conversation take place through the window. So once again, through his very limited perspective, seeing it through the lens of ego and pride and fear, and he's just convinced, he's still convinced that Charlie is trying to get with Lindsay. And so then Alan actually starts shouting through the window. He's like, see, I knew it, to Charlie. He's like, I knew you were just trying to hook up with her. And Charlie just kind of carries on. He's like, please give Alan a second chance. And Lindsay's looking at this this jealous psychopath shouting at her through the window, and she's like, well, I don't know about this. I don't know if I really want to get back with him. And it's so symbolic, right, of how we're just so caught up in our stories, and just so caught up in how things just never work out for us, and so caught up in our complaining and our tantrums, and just like I was. And we just keep making things worse and worse with ourselves, for ourselves, instead of just kind of stepping back and seeing the things that are working out for us, and seeing that the universe is conspiring in our favor, and that God is ready to give us everything that we want and much more. And, seeing the love that's always available to us. And so that's what I did. There is a happy ending to the story for me. I don't know about for Alan. We'll just have to see how it plays out. But for me, there was a happy ending to all of this. And I mean, there's never really an ending, right? The story's always evolving, and both on our linear earthly plane and also in this eternal plane as well, right? It really is the never-ending story, which is one of my favorite movies, by the way. But things are always evolving, right? And but yeah, it's never truly over. And so yeah, so I finally stopped fighting my reality. I stopped playing into the story of things not working out for me. And then I just settled into this peace. And let me tell you that that quote of the peace that surpasses all understanding, that became my reality. And I would just take these walks and yeah, just go on these walks and everything would just be kind of encased in this magical glow. And it was just this wonderful, beautiful feeling of peace and love. And just knowing that it was available to me and that I no longer had to struggle anymore. And I'm like a naturally optimistic person anyway, but I didn't recognize until I experienced this peace just how much I was still caught up in these stories of lack and caught up in having these arguments with people in my head, and yeah, just caught up in these stories of how things never worked out for me. And like Alan, I think a lot of times these stories come from childhood. It comes from these times that we've been disappointed. And so it becomes like a defense mechanism, right? And having this kind of shield of skepticism to protect us. And I even kind of had this saying playing in my head that, you know, fool me once, but you'll never fool me again. And it's just so ridiculous, like looking back at it, like I just kind of laugh at myself now and just like how angry I was at the world and how caught up I was in thinking that the world had just played me, but I was strong now, and I wasn't gonna let it happen to me again. And but once I let down this armor, and once I let down these defenses, and just let the world flow into me, I recognized that this love and this peace, which is really what I had been seeking all along, that it was always available to me, and it's always available to you as well. And I'm actually doing an event this weekend that's centered all around this, around accessing that love that's always available to you, and just living in that magical glow, that magic feeling. And so all the information is in the description. I do hope you'll join me. But more than that, I just really want this message to sink in, this message that the kingdom is available to you, that the love and the peace that you're looking for is always available to you. And if you just stop, just make a commitment, even for an hour, of just letting go of these stories and just seeing what comes to you. And it really is a magical feeling. And so with that, thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day.